Hi, I'm Billie Tarascio from Modern Law, and I've been tagged in this video a bunch of times where celebrity or famous divorce attorney James Sexton says he likes to represent bad guys. Let's take a listen.
I prefer to represent the bad guy or a bad woman because it's lower stakes. I represent victims of domestic violence. I represent perpetrators of domestic violence. And I would rather represent the villain for two reasons. One is tactical. The bank robber always has a tactical advantage over the cops because they can shoot innocent bystanders. Like the person who doesn't care about the kids has a significant tactical advantage in divorce litigation. So you have a bigger palette to choose from. The other is, it is very frightening as an advocate to know that the only thing standing between justice and your client is the argument you're going to make on their behalf.
High pressure.
So if I'm representing an unbelievable piece of and I do a really good job as an advocate, and I obfuscate the facts, and I misdirect, and I'm successful in my argument, I did my job. The system failed, but it wasn't my fault.
There's so much to talk about here. Let's start with the second point. When you represent victims of domestic violence, he was specifically talking about good guys and bad guys with regards to domestic violence. So let's keep that analysis. Representing victims of domestic violence is incredibly difficult because there is a ton of pressure. If you lose, your client and your client's children could actually be in danger and suffer harm. So that is really, really hard. And so from that perspective, I understand. But the second half of his perspective, I'll do a great job as a litigator. And then if we lose whatever, if we win, then yeah, a bad guy might be able to hurt his family, but I did a good job and that's a system failure. I just don't agree with that. So to me, there's a difference between cases with kids and cases without kids. There's really only two issues that you deal with in family court. Really, there's two. There's money and kids. And so if we're dealing with a case without kids, the stakes are not as high because if if husband and wife get divorced and they go their separate ways, and I don't get, the mom as much money as maybe I think she could have, that's okay, right? She's going to go on and have the chance to rebuild her life and make her money and make her choices. And that's kind of on her. But if I lose and there's children involved, then they are at risk. They are at risk, and I have failed to protect them. And that was my job. It's very difficult in those cases to prove actual danger. So when I represent the bad guy in that situation, I am mostly trying to take a strategy of mitigation. So it might be deny anything has ever happened and take incredibly proactive steps to show the court and the mom that there's no risk to the children moving forward. So that might mean that I'm advising my clients to get into therapy, or I'm advising my clients to put in the parenting plan and to agree to no corporal punishment. Because sometimes when children are being abused, it's in the name of discipline. And so if we can remove that, then I feel like that's a win. Even though I'm representing the bad guy, I'm helping to make the children safer with their father moving forward, and I feel good about that. If drinking is involved, then I suggest that we utilize a tool like SoberLink to ensure sobriety during parenting time, because that's going to make the kids safer. So I don't have a problem representing bad guys, but my goal is to make them good guys if I can. Now for that first part, there's a tactical advantage to representing the bad guy because the bad guy doesn't care. So you have more leverage. Okay. So what are we assuming here? We're assuming a divorce with children, and the bad guy doesn't care about getting parenting time. So we can trade parenting time to mom for paying less money on behalf of the bad guy. That I don't feel as bad about. That sometimes is a win-win. If dad, the bad guy, being around the children 50-50 is not something that he's actually interested in, and he's going to leverage the system in order to pay less, let's say in child support, that's a fine deal that they can make. They are two adults who both have separate interests, who are making a decision. And there's nothing that would prevent the mom in the future from going back and asking for a modification of child support and getting more child support later. And if somebody wants to decide, I'm going to take less of the property that I'm entitled to in order to get what I really want, which might be sole decision making or the majority of parenting time, then we're going to think long and hard about the pros and cons of that. If I'm representing mom, if I'm representing dad, and that's what dad wants, then great, we're going to do it. The only thing is, I am very hesitant to ever encourage a parent to not have any parenting time unless they're truly a danger to their children and they're not going to be a positive influence, and they're going to terminate, somebody else is going to adopt. I'm a little careful about that, because usually, like the vast majority of the time, having a healthy relationship with both parents is what's best for kids. So I feel like we as divorce attorneys have a responsibility to keep in mind that what we do has real impacts on children who have no options. They can't leave a bad situation. They are stuck. So I don't feel like that doesn't matter. I don't feel like that's a system failure. We as divorce attorneys are part of the system.